Hello, welcome back. It's Monster Making Day, the day where we make monsters for your game. And we're looking at a really strange, unusual, mutated, aberration, alien thing with tentacles and barbs and a beak and just completely strange. Like it's a horror thing. It is definitely a horror thing. And we're going to be playing around with that today. So what I've decided to do is put together a poll. I'm going to put up the poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. My suggestion is grab some food, some drink, make sure you are comfortable, and we will get started very quickly. Try to get this done in a timely manner so you can see how it can be done, how you can make your own monsters, because that's what this is all about. So now that I've done that and I've tested everything and everything seems to be working fine, let's get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, specifically the version of Dungeons & Dragons called Shadowdark, which basically came out in 2023. It's my newest or most favourite form of Dungeons & Dragons, with my second most favourite obviously being Beck Me Dungeons & Dragons, and I would say after that I would fall back to 5e, the original 2014 version. And we're going to do a Grell. Grell, whatever you want to say, I don't care. It really doesn't matter. We're going to make this monster because if you've got the core rulebook for Shadowdark, you know that there is no Grell. It is considered to be IP by Wizards of the Coast, which means we have to change the name of this monster for this to work. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today, okay? Since the core book doesn't have it and it's not out there, let's make one that you can use in your game and that I can use in my game as well, actually. That would be nice. Expanding the number of monsters. I mean, the core rulebook's great. It's got 200 plus monsters, but is it enough? It's never enough. So this is the question I have for you. Before I get started, I've got my stat block mostly built. I'm going to show you and explain how I build it. How would you build the stat block for the Grell in Shadowdark? Now, Shadowdark RPG is definitely a much simpler stat block than you're probably used to if you've played 5e or 4e or 3.5. Heck, you know, it's definitely a very different animal. Or Pathfinder, which is another version of D&D, really. So, yeah, that is my question. Start putting in your feedback. The Beak Brain. Fred Huber is a patron and a moderator. I think you're right, Fred Huber. Beak Brain is a good substitute name for this creature. Or is it the Beak Brain, or is it the Beak Brain or the Brain Octopus? I don't know. That's what the chat's all about. You guys can put your feedback there. But that being said, let's get straight into the business of doing this. I try to make these live streams where we make monsters as quick and as fast as possible so that we can get as much done in a very short space of time, and you can get on with your day, and so can I. So I'll say again, everything that I'm showing you today will go onto Patreon. So the actual Grell stat block that I'm doing today will actually go onto Patreon. That's where you'll find it. That's in the paid tier, but at the free tier you can find a table which I'll be sharing and using today. You can use that table to actually figure out how to, what's the best way to say this? Make your own monsters. That's very much where my head is at nowadays, is how can I get you to make your own stuff? So we have a table for that as well, which I'll be sharing. So this table here is for Shadowdark monster creation. It explains what your monster level is, your attack roll bonuses, your number of attacks, you know, damage per attack, how many hit points you're likely to have, your armor class, difficulty classes if there is one involved for stat checks, what sort of treasure it has, the lowest end of your stats, the highest end of your stats for a particular monster. That's really everything you need, okay? And it explains how to calculate your hit points, so it's not just a broad range. So everything that's in the core rulebook is here, plus more. And if you're into making 5e monsters, I have a table which is also part of the free tier on Patreon. You can download and use that to make your 5e monsters, which is updated to deal with other stuff. Anyway, let's get on to the Grell. So we're going to whip past this project, by the way, is in conjunction with AJ Pickett. I'm building the stat blocks and he's going to be doing some other stuff, a lot of drawing and a lot of monster creation, some original monsters. So here we are. We won't worry about the lore right now. We'll deal with that some other time. Most of you know what that is. So we've got brain octopus, but beak brain. I'll put here beak brain as another possible name. Okay, a large floating brain with a beak and large barbed tentacles. Very, very simple. It's not very complicated in terms of how you describe it. How it works, I haven't written anything about that, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to worry about the monster itself. So first off, starting with monster level. I've given it a monster level of 5. Why is that? Well, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I usually look back at AD&D or basic D&D, earlier versions of the monster to determine where I think it should sit. And that's not always the case, but that's quite often the case with what I'm doing. What I found with the Grell is honestly, it is a very high level monster. Or at least mid-range to high-level monster. So in AD&D, I discovered that the worker version of the Grell is got 5 hit dice. And usually what I do is I use the hit dice from AD&D to determine the monster level rather than the monster level from 5e, because 5e's challenge rating numbers, or monster level, which is your challenge rating, is shit. So better to go to a system which isn't as shit. I'm not saying that AD&D is perfect, but it's better than 5e's challenge rating system. And I've had to adjust monster levels for 5e all the time. So I looked at this, okay, 5, so it goes from 5 to 7 to 9. But really what I want is the basic one. You'll make some adjustments. So AD&D, second version, and that's what I was looking at when I was looking at the monster level. Now the monster level for 5e is challenge rating 3. I think that's too low, so I've left it as a 5, okay? What is its alignment? Well, I've marked it down as chaotic because there's no evil or good alignment in Shadowdark. There is just lawful, neutral, and chaotic. And one of the things you discover is that, neutral evil is sort of where the Grell sits in 5e, and neutral evil is where it sits in AD&D, so it's the same. So I think it's leaning more towards instead of the neutral side, I think it's leaning more into the chaotic. Chaotic is more evil. So I think what we'll do is we'll leave it there for now. Next, we have to determine its stats. AD&D won't solve that problem for me. So all of its stats, we don't get the stat or ability score, we just use the modifiers. So I went through, since AD&D can't solve that problem for me, I went through and had a look at how it would be structured for the likes of 5e, and I'm using those numbers to a certain degree. So 15 for strength, that's the score, so the modifier is a +2, so that's what I've taken and marked that down. Dexterity. The dexterity is marked as a 14, it's +2 again, so we'll take that. Constitution is marked as a 13, so that is a +1, so we'll take that. That's fine too. And then intelligence is marked as a 12, so that's a +1, so cool, we'll mark that down. And then wisdom is marked as a 11 for its score, so the modifier is 0, so we'll take that as well. And then charisma is marked as a 9, so that's a -1, so I've marked that down as well. Remember, this Grell is the lowest form of this creature. If you want a stronger version of the monster, you will have to make adjustments for it, okay? But that is where I'm sort of looking at when I was taking this into consideration. So does this fall in line with everything that I've been doing with my stat block? And if we look at monster level 5 here, if we go across, it shows you the lowest end of the stats is a -4, sorry, and the highest end of the stats is a +4. And none of our stats fall outside of that. So we're all good with that. It's about as strong or as strong as it needs to be, okay? So we'll take that as our definitive. That's where we want to sit. Cool. Next, movement. Fairly easy. Most monsters always have a movement of near, which is basically anything that's slightly more than 5 feet up to 30 feet. But we don't use feet as an increment in Shadowdark. It's close, which is 5 feet, and then near, which is more than 5 feet up to 30 feet, and then double near, which is more than 30 feet up to 60 feet, and then far, which is as far as you can see. Those are the increments. So we're going to go with near. We don't want it to move too fast because 5e says that it moves basically 10 feet and it flies 30 feet, but I don't think it's ever going to do anything but fly. Why would you not just fly if you could? And rather than crawling along the ground, moving really, really slow. I had a look at the movement in AD&D to sort of see if that would sort of fall in line with a creature like this. And its movement in AD&D is fly 12. So I thought, well, that's probably basically near. That's as close to what we want as we can get. Cool. Awesome. Next, armor class. Armor class in 5e is listed as a 12. So I marked down 12, and then I just need to make sure that 12 is representative of the monster narratively, but also is it representative of the monster in another form, which is, are we getting something that falls in line with the equation? Because the armor class in Shadowdark is just like 5e, is 10 plus your dexterity modifier, and then you add armor bonuses on after that. I don't think a beak with a brain and tentacles would have armor. Natural armor does not seem like it's sensible. It's not going to be wearing armor, so none of that makes any sense. So we're going to just be working with dex. So that's 10 plus 2, which equals 12. Now for a monster level of 5, is a 12 all right for Shadowdark? Well, let's have a look. If we go to armor class and monster level 5, you'll see anything between an 8 and a 12 and a 17. 8 and 17 is a workable armor class for Shadowdark. It's a big range, I know. So we're all fine. We're kind of in the middle. So that's, I don't think we need to worry about that. We'll keep moving on. Next, hit points. Hit points are calculated the same way for every single monster. It is never any different. There's no guessing games. You're not really sort of like, okay, how many hit dice should this monster have like you do with 5e? In Shadowdark, it is the number of hit dice you get is based on your monster level, okay? And monsters always start with a d8. So you're always using a d8 for your monster, which means you take the average, which is 4.5. You multiply that 4.5 by the monster level, which is going to be 5. You add the constitution modifier once, not multiple times, just once. It's the same with player characters. That's all you have to do. So the calculation for it is actually pretty easy. Okay, so if we're taking that into consideration and we're doing our calculations, that is 4.5 multiplied by 5 gives us 22.5. We add the constitution modifier, and you'll notice that most monsters usually have either a 0, a +1, +2, +3, or +4 to their constitution modifier. It's very rare to see a negative modifier to constitution, because that just means that they're too easy to smash. So we add that +1 from the constitution modifier, and we get 23.5, which means we round down, we get 23. Okay, it's nice and simple. There it is. It's done. Okay, next, we need to determine how many attacks we get for this monster. We'll get onto the special ability in a second, but how many attacks does a monster like this get? Okay, so level 5, our hit points are sitting within the band. over here for a level 5 monster between 21 and 26. So how many attacks? Between 2 and 3 attacks. Now on 5e, it says that you get basically 2 attacks. One with I'm looking at the wrong one. That you get 2 attacks, one with its tentacles and one with its beak. So I looked at that and I was thinking, okay, we could work with that. I don't have a problem. Rather than having 3 attacks, we'll make it 2 attacks. It's also a monster that grapples, so we don't need to worry too much about getting too crazy. It's not really a soldier-like upfront fighter. It works a little bit differently. And then I wanted to have a look at how this monster worked in AD&D as well. So I had to take that into consideration a lot as I was going through this process. So I thought, okay, 2 attacks. We'll go 1 tentacle, 1 bite, and instead of having, getting to have 2 tentacle attacks or 2 bites, like it's set in concrete. I don't like normally doing that sort of thing, but in this case, I knew what would happen is you would always go with the tentacle attack over the bite. Like that would wind up being the most common thing to wind up doing. So to avoid that sort of thing happening, I think it's best to just give you 1 of each, okay? And we can probably shift the order around here, and I will. So I'll go cut, I'll put that here, go paste, and then we go and then that's that. Okay, and we'll put our tentacle at the back end. I think one of the reasons why I did it this way is I wanted you to use the tentacle before the bite. Actually, that's wrong then, isn't it? Because what we really want to do is we want to lead off with the tentacle, and then if you manage to grapple, then it's going to make the bite a lot easier. Depending on how the game master rules that how you are held by the griddle. Okay, so amount of damage that you do. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I took into consideration. I took into consideration 5e and AD&D with regard to the tentacles. I made the tentacle a D8 and a D6 for the bite. So like the tentacles and the barbs are probably going to do more, but the grappling is done with the tentacle, okay? So that's sort of how I look at it. And when I look at our level 5 monster and we look at how much damage, a D6 or a D8. So that's exactly right. So we can pick either one, it doesn't matter. We can make them identical if we wanted. I don't think it really mattered that much. We could make the bite more vicious and the tentacle less vicious. We could make it a D6. They could be both D6s, and the tentacle's the only one that grapples. Like that would be fine too. I don't think it really matters too much in terms of its monster design. Okay, and then the bonus. The bonus is always your strength modifier or your dexterity modifier if you're dealing with a monster using its natural attacks. In my opinion, that's, consider it a finesse weapon. Okay, there's only one finesse weapon. It's a dagger in Shadowdark. But if it's part of your body, it should be finessable. Like, punching somebody, use dex, use strength, doesn't matter to hit. So we take that number. Our highest number, both are a +2, so strength and dexterity. We can add a couple of numbers to that. And usually what I find is for your attack bonus, you never make your attack bonus less than your strength or dexterity modifier. That is always a bad design for your attack bonus for your attacks. Don't do that. But you make it more or equal to, and that's fine. I also find that if you make the attack bonus for your monster the same as your level of your monster, so if you've got a 5, then making your attack bonus a 5 is probably a good idea. But you could go 1 point up or 1 point down, and I think that's a good compromise. So I've gone with a +4, as you can see here. And if you go look at our table here for level 5 monsters, it says here anything between a 0 and a 6 for our attack bonus. So I've gone with a 4. And I think that's probably the best way, is either go with a 4, 5, or a 6. Unless you're dealing with something that's really not equipped to attack and fight, probably don't go for 0s and 1s and 2s. Okay, not at that level. Your players will be able to hit it too easily, and they'll the armor class for monsters doesn't really change, and characters can change their armor class a little bit better, not a lot, but a little bit better. And if they're dealing with a fighter, it's even yeah, fighters can be pretty rough, even for Shadowdark. Okay, so we've got our bite, we've got our tentacle. We need to deal with the special ability, which is its grab. Now in 5e, now I'm mentioning 5e a lot, but I'm going to be going back to AD&D, don't you worry. The tentacle actually allows you to grapple something or hold something. So I looked at that and I thought, okay, so it's going to do damage, and it was doing quite a bit of damage, considering, you know, it was actually doing more damage, the tentacle for grappling, than the bite and 5e. And I was like, okay, so we'll take that in consideration. How is that going to look? And so I think the easiest way is to go DC 15 strength check or target held. What does target held mean? It means whatever the hell the dungeon master believes it should mean. It really, that's it. It doesn't get any more complicated or simple than that. That's how it works, because there aren't conditions in Shadowdark. So it also lists DC 15 strength check on turn to break free. Now you're wondering, I imagine, like, why did I use that wording? And one of the reasons for using that wording is I looked at other monsters in Shadowdark that had already had a grapple feature. And I believe that I based it heavily off the roper that is in the Shadowdark book. So here, grapple. So grab. DC 15 strength or target trapped in tentacle. Instead, I've just got or target held. Tentacle auto hits target next round. Now we could tie that in and put that there if we wanted to, which would mean it would make it easier for the bite to strike. But do we want that? Maybe we want to do something else. Then it's got here, DC 15 strength on turn to break free. That's where the break free is. So what we need to decide is, when you are grappled by this creature and held, what is it that it's doing? Is there something special about the Grell that we need to include? We're not going to get it from the roper because it's a different monster. So here are some of the things that I came across with the Grell. And maybe this is probably more important in terms of how things should work. This is what you get here. So in 5e it says here, tentacles. Constitution saving throw or be poisoned for 1 minute. So we've got a strength check. We're not going to put in a constitution check as well. That would be ridiculous. But this says it's basically poisoned. The poison target is paralyzed and it can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns. Blah, 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 blah. So we're not going to worry about that right now. So paralyzed is a factor here. Maybe that is what is more important here. So what I would say is, or target held and paralyzed. Shadowdark doesn't specify how paralyzed works. Paralyzed works the way you would instinctively think. You can't move and you can't do anything. Okay? That's probably the best way to sort of rule it. And then it has here, target is also grappled DC 15 to escape. So it's got a 15 to escape. So is our DC too high? And are we fulfilling the key elements of the 5e monster? Yes, I think we are. But we also need to check to make sure our number is not too high. So let's go over to our table. Level 5 monster, and what are the DCs that are considered to be reasonable? Anywhere between a 9 and an 18. So we're all good. So everything seems to be fitting in line. Our numbers are actually within the parameters. Now we need to look at this ability right here and break down whether the paralysis side or paralyzing aspect is a major feature of the Grell. And I think I could argue that it probably is. Doing poison damage is unimportant. The damage is already done by the D8. We don't have to have more damage. Okay? That's why we have a D8 rather than the D6. So let's have a look at AD&D, the second printing, and see how this monster works. This is what it says here. I'm taking my glasses off because my eyes are old and I can't read this tiny writing with the corrective lenses, believe it or not. I'm going to struggle to read it full stop, but here we go. The grill's most common strategy is to use its natural levitation ability to hide in the upper reaches of a large chamber. Okay, so flying is the way to go. It can then drop silently on a victim who suffers a -3 penalty to surprise rolls when attacked in this way. So it sort of suggests that it tends to surprise enemies. Do we need to bake that into the mechanics of our stat block? Probably not. A worker grill attacks with all 10 tentacles. Each one that hits grips the opponent. Okay, so gripping or grabbing is pretty much the same. The grip can be broken with successful bend, bars, or lift gate rolls. So we're not going to do all of that sort of nonsense. We're not going to have 10 attacks with the tentacle. That ain't going to happen. For each hit, the victim must roll a saving throw versus paralysis. So paralysis and paralyzing is a factor with a +4 bonus, or be paralyzed for 5d4 rounds. Now, I'm not even going to bother putting 5d4 rounds. I'm just saying that it's indefinite. You're paralyzed until you figure out how to get unparalyzed. I think that is the easiest way to deal with that. There is a DC check to end the break free, so you will no longer be paralyzed. If the thing dies, then you won't need to break free because it's not holding you anymore. So I think we've got that all built in. That's fine. With 2 tentacles gripping the prey, the grill can lift it up toward the ceiling and devour the prey when desired. Okay, I don't think we need to tie that in either. The grill automatically hits paralyzed creatures each round. That's a factor we probably need to consider. Now, the Roper had a sentence that was structured like that as well. Soldier grill often use weapons including tipped spears and lightning lances. The tipped spear is an edged metal head with fits. Okay, blah, 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 blah. We don't need this. Okay, here we go. Victims, tentacles, lancing, points, damage, tentacles. You can attack the tentacles. I don't want to get too crazy. We're not trying to turn it into 5e. We just want to make it simple enough that you can run it. Grill regenerate lost or damaged tentacles in 1 to 2 days, and are immune to electrical attacks. Now that is something that we might want to include. Grill use strategy and tactics in their battles and can attack more than one opponent each round. They are intelligent enough to allocate their tentacle attacks in an advantageous way. So what this might suggest to us is that maybe we need to include 2 tentacle attacks or 2 bite attacks so that you can interchange. So let's do that. Since I like AD&D a lot, but I just don't want to play it, let's go here. Now the problem is the tentacle attacks and the bite attacks. The bite attacks are probably not going to ever get used. Not if it's a D6, so let's make it a D8. The grappling, grappling and paralyzing something, there's no point doing the grappling and paralyzing again if you've already done that. So the bite will come in. It's going to be more of a narrative. So if you've already grappled 2 targets with your 2 tentacles, is it necessary to keep going? What we could potentially do is say that every round you could potentially grapple something, 2 targets with 2 tentacles, or you can bite, but that they have 10 tentacles in total. And 10 long barbed tentacles. Okay. So that means that you potentially could grapple 10 creatures with this thing. That makes it a very nasty monster. I'm all right with the idea. I don't have a problem with it at all. So let's keep going here. We're getting close to the top end of my time with this. Let's look at the other aspect, which is that basically you now automatically hit. You've paralyzed the target. It is essentially like the Roper in many respects in terms of how it's going to work. So let us tie this in here, and okay, DC 20 or the target in or target held in tentacle and paralyzed. So we'll do that, and then what we want to do is Okay, let's go here with Grell. Auto hits. Target grabbed. So it's a little bit different. I've worded it. Okay. Grell auto hits the target grabbed. Okay. So that is our special ability. And then I'm going to put in an immune. Oh, hang on. Hits. Grell auto hits the target grab. Why is that letting me not doing it? And let's go with grapple. There we go. I'll just put it in as grapple, 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 grapple. Okay, that it likes all that. That's fine. Mutated mutant monster can grab 10 creatures at once. Okay, we've tied a lot more of the concept of AD&D into here. Immune. Do I want to say immune or impervious? I think we'll say impervious, because impervious is used quite a lot. Impervious, and we go here. Immune, impervious, immune. Electrical immunity. Immunity. Okay. All right. So we've got all the aspects of that monster that have been in older versions and new versions, which makes this quite... Now you can see why I did not want this to be a monster level 3, because by doing this and leaning more into the AD&D side, this monster became significantly more of a threat. Let's go here. Okay, so there we go. Let's go back to the chat and see what you guys have cooked up in your chat and in terms of your feedback. I think that sort of falls in line with the general theme of older versions of the Grell and a newer version of the Grell, and we kind of got what we need. Okay, all right. So beak brain, I've got that down. So we've got grappling, we've got biting. Our poison is already tied in. Essentially, that's the paralyzing effect. It's feeding a poison into you. And what else? I like I like to think of the Grell as the guru for planetfall, stationfall. What is that? It is dark. You could be attacked by a gru. Okay, all right. It's flying ambush predator in the dark. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Hi, John. How you going? I received the notification but missed the start. That happens. Here we go. Square Peg makes games. Hello, how are you? And I secretly want to know what Fred's been up to. You want to know what I've been up to? I've been spending way too much time working on monsters, writing an adventure for my home group called, what is it called? No, I can't. So I shouldn't. I doubt AJ's watching, or any of my group. They're really not interested in the slightest. They've got better things to do with their time than watch my live streams. But yeah, I'm working on a very big adventure, and trying to fill it out, it's actually been quite difficult. And because I was sick with COVID a little while ago, my brain has been complete garbage. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that, and I've been actually on my own personal channel. I've been talking about movies a bit more. So I've been working on The Man of Steel, talking about that. Yeah, I don't want to give my adventure away. Yeah, I'm going to be very careful about that. Hello, Lazy. Man, I always catch the end of these. It happens. I am, look, these monster ones are really short. I do them really fast. Okay, I get them done as quickly as I can, and then I move on. It's not like 5e where I was taking an hour and a half or 2 hours to build one monster. I can get them done in 20 minutes. Probably less than that if I actually, knuckle down. Just in a live stream, if you explain everything, it takes a bit longer. So, yeah. Do you make your own monster stat blocks? Yes, 83%. Good. Incomplete, 16%. Okay, we've got to get that. Got to get you up to the completed side of things. Poll members who have answered 6. Okay, all right, it's not too bad. We're going to be back next week. I believed. Do you guys remember the Hooked Horror? I'm sure you do. So I'm taking my inspiration for the Hooked Horror from AD&D. I'm also taking my inspiration for the Hooked Horror from Modern 5e, okay? Not so much the new version of 5e, because I don't think they've done enough with it to be that helpful to you, unfortunately. But, yeah, that's sort of where my head is at with them right now. So that's what we're doing next week. What are we doing tomorrow? We're building another class. We're going very Mortal Kombat. I'm going to make a Mortal Kombat class, essentially. It'll be crazy. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to. I'll probably keep working away at that sort of stuff. Anyway, I think we're done. We've covered all the things that we needed to cover, and I will again reiterate, for those of you who don't know, this is the stat block here that I will put up onto Patreon for the paid tier, for those of you who want to use it or access to it, or change it, or whatever you want to do with it, I don't care. Along with a whole lot of other monsters we've been making. And I'm also going to, you'll also be able to find the Shadowdark monster creation table in the free tier. It's available on my Patreon. You can go grab that. You can also find the Dungeons & Dragons 5e quick monster creation table as well. It's up there as well. So if you're playing 5e and you want a table that allows you to do that, you can do that. It will work for Modern 2025 and 2014. It'll work for both, but it is probably not perfect. You've got to understand it will take 10, 20 years to test all that maths, including Shadowdark. I don't believe that the table and the instructions that have been given to you for Shadowdark in the core book and the table that I provide you is perfect. There is going to be some refinement required, but that will take years, decades to figure out. Like, it will not be a slow, fast process. It's a very slow process. And anybody who says it can be done faster is full of shit. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. So, yeah, you can get on with your day, and I can get on with cooking my fish. Anyway, we are done. See you later. So, thank you for watching and listening. Huge thank you to everybody who took part in the poll. For those of you who were in chat, huge thank you to Lazy, John, Square Peg Makes Games, particularly Fred Huber, who provided some suggestions and some ideas. That really does help. And I think we locked down and got that grill figured out pretty quickly. It was pretty easy to do. Thank God for that. I'm glad when things are easy. Those of you who are patrons, paid tier, thank you so much. Without you, I just wouldn't be able to keep doing this. I would just wind up making stuff in my house alone with nobody ever seeing what I do. It would simply be that's what would happen. So yeah, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself. Be nice to your neighbours, and make sure to look after yourself, your family, and your friends, because they are the most important people in your lives. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.